Bom dia. Tudo bem? Coming to you live from my natural habitat. This is the farm where I was born, Vinha Velha. It seems so silly to be thinking about style at a farm where clothing is so functional. But as I've been here, I've started to really consider the depth of how important choosing your clothing is and what it can do for your life. When I was 22, I came back and worked on this farm for 4 months, and I wore basically this and a tank top the entire time, this same pair of clothes every single day. And I wore my clothes into the ground, and then when my pants ripped, I patched them up and kept wearing them. And there's something beautiful about the simplicity of that level of utility for your clothing, where now in a more urban environment, if I wore the same clothes every single day to work, it would matter. There would be an impact. And I had a really interesting conversation about clothing with some folks on the farm today, where the woman who runs the garden here, she's like my older sister. We grew up together until I moved. She was talking about how she really does want to be able to express herself more, and she doesn't feel good in her clothes, but she feels stuck with what she has to wear. And so I think even in places where functionality and utility is super important, the point of style for me is really about knowing how you feel and choosing how you want to feel in life. I think that we're on this rock that is hurtling through space. It's a miracle that any of us are here, that life survives here. It doesn't really make all that much sense. We have this crazy world, all these plants and animals and infrastructure and people and belief systems and ideals, and it's spiritual and it's mundane and it's so profane and profound. And in all of that, I think the rare ability we have as human beings to choose how we want to experience this life and move toward that and move in that direction is incredible and profound. And what I mean by that is, say that I want to build a farm and have a community or start having some animals. I can literally imagine that outcome, and it will impact how I feel because of how my brain and body are connected. And I'll feel a certain way about it, right? You have people setting goals who think that making a certain amount of money is going to have them feel a certain way. So I think clothing is such an interesting tool to be able to choose, be choiceful about our experience as humans. Because when you step into your wardrobe every day, I notice how I feel. And then I think the most powerful vehicle that clothing can offer us is to consider how we want to feel in life and to choose our clothes based off of how we want to be experiencing the experience we want to be creating. Because when we do that, we are affirming that we can create more of our experience here on this earth, and that we're a creator of some kind. And whenever I make an outfit decision from that place, it feels amazing. And honestly, when I do that, regardless of how good the fit is, how awesome the clothes are, or the technical side of things, I typically will get more compliments when I'm coming from this choosing, this choicefulness. People feel it. There's this vibe when someone is connected to who they are and what they want to be stepping into. And I think there's this way that doing so can also collapse timelines, right? If you are going towards a goal, that goal represents a physical outcome in the external world, but also an internal state and a way of being, how you want to be experiencing things. And if you can start to cultivate that now, I think things move more quickly in life. And also, you won't get the thing externally and then end up impoverished internally or be the lonely millionaire in a mansion on a hill. You have a rich internal life, and you've been cultivating this experience, this way of being, whether that be joy or fulfillment or playfulness, or if you want to be a rascal, whatever it is that you want to step into more. So that's why I think clothes are fascinating as tools, and I think vastly underexplored in how we use them. So yeah, style is about your identity and what you're stepping into, but at the very foundation for me, it's about choice, which is the essence of being human, is that we have choice. We can choose. If not what happens to us, we can't choose that, but we can generally choose how we respond. That is a tremendous gift that I do not take lightly and that I want to bring into everything I do. Clothing just seems to be a great vehicle for it for me. And it's so funny being back at the place where I was born, because I think another thing that clothes really do, they represent where and whom you belong to, what circles you belong to. I think since the dawn of time, clothing has been used to signify status and power and symbolize, okay, I can fit into this social strata or in this one. And typically that was meant to separate people. But now in such a postmodern world, the internet, we have all these microcultures. There's really such a diverse plethora of cultures that you can plug into and belong to. And I think that's part of the reason clothing has become so confusing for people, is because in the past, even at the beginning of the 20th century, menswear was really simple. You wore a suit and there were different ways to wear that suit, but that's what you wore. And now I think it's much more confusing for people. You have to actually choose your identity and also what groups you belong to. So I'm kind of building a list in reverse here, but I think the reason style is important is, one, because we're creators, and the more that you can confirm your creatorship in the mornings, the more you cultivate that perspective and cultivate an experience of life that you want to have. I think that's a lot of what it's all about as a human being. And two, there's this concept of belonging to a group, and normally we represent that visually in some way. And I think now in the 21st century, belonging has become so weird and fragmented. And there's a way that I really want clothing to become a vehicle with which we can belong to ourselves and then choose gracefully where we want to belong externally, what tribes we want to be a part of. And I think choosing and cultivating what you want to be experiencing in life, step one, ultimately helps cultivate step two of belonging to yourself, of this being in touch with your instincts, being in touch with who you really are. I was in a personal development cult in my mid-20s, and I got brainwashed and really lost touch with my own instincts, lost touch with my intuition. I ignored a lot of red flags. I overrode a lot of my instincts and how I understand my own being, my body. And coming out of that, I had to rebuild a sense of myself. I had to rebuild trust in my body and my instincts. I had to rebuild a sense of how I saw myself, how I related to people. I burned a lot of bridges. I had massive ego death. And I'm really grateful for the people that still accepted me in their lives as a result of that. But coming out of that, I find that clothing has been such an instinctual way for me to actually reconnect with my experience and trust my own instincts, trust my body. And I think that type of belonging to your own system is critical to showing up in integrity in the world, right? And not being something you're not. So there's this way that cultivating and creating the experience that we want through clothing has us belong to ourselves, has us trust our instincts, has us trust our intuition about what we want to experience, who we are, and how we want to present ourselves to the world. So that's what I mean by belonging to yourself. And then belonging to others is really simple. There's a context with it that you're stepping into every day, and you're dressing for the context in some sense. So if I'm going into work meetings, I'm going to be dressing in a way that's appropriate for that context. And typically most people want to belong to the context they're stepping into, but they also want to stand out a little bit. They want to be themselves. They want to be unique in some way. And that really is threading the needle with your style, is being able to be appropriate. So if you're going to a wedding, you don't want to wear sweatpants. That's dumb, but I think some people probably do want that. But if I'm going to a conference or if I'm going to a show, I want to be appropriate for that context. I don't want to disrespect other people and the situation that we're in. And I also want to be myself. And I think that is cultivated through, connecting with ourselves, etc. So we've got step one, which is all about being a creator. Step two is about belonging to ourselves and belonging to the world at large. I'm making these up as steps as we go. These are just me riffing. So yeah, I'm going through a couple different meta layers here, and there are a few more. I think the next layer of this is definitely identity. Clothing and style to me represents your relationship with yourself. How do you talk to yourself? How do you see yourself? That's what identity is how you see yourself ultimately. And we'll always behave in accordance with how we see ourselves and our identity. If you don't see yourself as a marathon runner, you're sure as hell not going to be good at running marathons. If you don't see yourself as someone who can learn skills quickly, you're probably going to give up or quit before you really start or not follow through. And so how you see yourself, I think, dictates a lot of what you can accomplish and the results that you create in this world, but mostly also the experience you have. Do you like being with yourself? And not only that, identity also, I think, ushers us through these different phases in our lives, right? When I was in my 20s, I had a very nascent, burgeoning identity. I think as I've grown, I've started to assume more and more layers of it. I'm now a husband. That's a very different level of identity and way of seeing myself as more of a protector or provider archetype than before, when I was just freewheeling and I was like in young prince mode, just having a ball in life. And clothing has a way that can help us move towards and cultivate and step into these new identities. But oftentimes, a lot of people get stuck with their style because they are still wearing clothes that are tied to an old identity. You have your clothes from college, or you have a closet full of identities from 10 years ago, and that's why a lot of people get stuck. They don't know how to set a vision for who they want to step into, what they want to become, what they want to create in their lives, and then have their clothes, again, I see them really as embodiment tools more than anything else, be able to help usher them into that, be able to help them transition into a new chapter in their lives, as opposed to just playing out unconsciously the old script from the past chapter. Even if you're really clear on your goals, even if you're really clear on where you want to go and how you see yourself, it's very jarring to wake up in the morning and then put clothes on that don't match how you want to be seeing yourself. That is bizarre. And I think that is like, there's a cognitive dissonance to that, where people will feel weird in their bodies and in their minds, like, wait, I know I'm moving in this direction, but when I look in the mirror, it just feels fucking weird. It's because there's a lack of congruence between what you're wearing and how you want to see yourself, what you want to step into in your life. So I think that identity layer is super, super important when it comes to clothing, and really connects to the creatorship and the belonging as well. There's identity, I think, is a key piece. And with it comes, way of being. There's an ontological component here, if you will, where when you're clear on the identity you want to step into and you can create more of the experience you want to have, you can start cultivating new ways of showing up in the world. And for me, for example, I think in my 20s, I was very into streetwear, which I was trying to have fun, explore the world, grow, learn, have new experiences. I made a lot of mistakes. I was excited about life. And the older I've gotten, the more responsibility that I've taken on, the more I've committed to things in my life, the more I've leaned more towards wearing like jackets and wearing more formal menswear and going deep into the details of that and different cloth types and different patterns and what they mean and how that feels to wear them. But ultimately, wearing those clothes has really aligned with more of the identity of where I want to head in my life, but also has resulted in a way of being that is much more congruent with where I want to go, as opposed to my 20s. I was just running around like a chicken with my head cut off. Bless your heart, Kevin, from 10 years ago. But the way of being that I feel now, wearing these, like a jacket, for example, is so much more what I'm stepping into, right? It's like shoulders down and back. I feel dignified. There's a humility to it. There's a respect to it. There's a certain groundedness to it. And those are the aspects and the ways of showing up in the world that I really want to be stepping into more. And again, I think using clothes as a vehicle or as a tool to do that has helped me tremendously in my career, both in my professional success and then also in my relationship, how I show up even to a date night or even daily. Like, I can't tell you how many times my wife just compliments what I'm wearing and she appreciates it so much. I'm doing it for me, but there's an impact that I experience with the people around me and in my endeavors in the world. So I can probably do other videos where I take each one of these concepts and I go way deeper into them, but I kind of want to just get all the cards out on the table, see what happens. And so far I'm digging this. I'm sure I'll think of more stuff, but I think I'm going to pause there. It's a good place to stop. If this resonated with you, come check it out. Every Sunday, once a month, I do a workshop called Fit Lab, where I teach on a topic, go deep on one thing, and then we do some live workshopping of your outfits. You bring something that you want feedback on. It's an awesome time and great people. Check out the link in the comments to join us. I hope to see you at the next one.